Hi, and welcome back to another episode of If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast. I'm your host, Cuddy Cudworth. Thank you very much to the 35,000 plus subscribers to the channel now, as we are talking about solutions. And today we're going to be talking about stress, anxiety, and burnout. And we've got an absolute expert all the way down from London coming today to speak. We really are international. I've had guests on from America, from Canada. We've had exorcists on, and now we've got an expert to talk about the stresses and the horrors of hospitality. Now, I worked in hospitality for 13 years, and I will be very honest. The people in the hospitality customer can be quite demanding. And that does take a toll. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. So, as if you were on blind date, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Excellent, love that. So no, I'm Joshua Samuels. Grew up in Romford. Got married to my now wife, who's from Welwyn Garden City, and got my passport and moved to Hertfordshire. I'm 32 years old. I was in the kitchen for coming up to 16 years. I started as an apprentice up at the Oxo Tower. I was there for 2.5 years before I moved on to working for Marcus Waring at the Gilbert Scott, which was in King's Cross. That for me was where I learned most about the cooking and the hardcore life, if you like, doing 8, 9, sometimes 10 doubles a week, 15, 16 hours a day, starting at 7, leaving at midnight. So yeah, that was pretty hectic. Left there, went to Scots in Mayfair, was there for a year. But the place I really enjoyed the most was at the Caravan in King's Cross. We did maybe 800 covers for brunch on the weekends, 2, 3, 400 covers for dinner during the week. And for me, that was like a family. And for me, if I could work in an industry or a place like that all the time, would be an absolute dream for me because it was a family, but I learned so much there. And that's where I really came out of myself as a human being and as a chef to a point. Left there, did various gastropubs, private members clubs, and then ended up doing what I'm doing now because of my own mental health struggles and issues, which, if you'd like, we could go into. And that's where I am at the moment.
So, before we go there, because I always like to talk about the tipping point with everyone, why
Sure.
is, because I've never asked this question before, and I've always wanted to know, why is it such long hours as a chef? Because you talk about doubles, and I know a lot of chefs. What, where is the premise of I'm going to be a chef so that I can work 14 hours a day? Where does that, when we're plotting the vision of I want to be a world-class chef, why is it that chefing, and I've seen the TV programs, I am talking about Gordon Ramsay, whether we've seen him or not, I am. Why
Yeah.
is it so stressful in there? Why is it so such a wanted vocation to follow?
But it's an interesting one. Firstly, I think the premise of, say, Hell's Kitchen and the sorts of programs you're thinking of, I think a lot of how he acts is for show these days because it's what sells. People aren't going to sit and watch a TV program where there's no drama, they overcook something. Oh, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. That won't get views, that won't sell. And I think that the industry in itself prides itself on competition. So what I mean by that is on social media, especially under certain reels, under pictures, under content, I've seen people in competition with themselves. How many days have you done this week? Oh, I've done 15 days in a row. I've done this. I've done 70 hours. It's almost like they wear it as a badge of honor. But I've got news for everyone. There's no trophy at the end of it. All that's left at the end of it is a dodgy knee, a back that doesn't work, and a broken family. it There is no trophy at the end of it. And if you're going back to, you know, I'm a chef, I want to be a chef, I'm going to do 14 hours. If I'm talking about myself personally, when I first got into the industry, I didn't truly know what I was getting myself in for. If I'm being completely honest with you,
That's
I
fair.
didn't.
That's fair.
So I'm being completely honest with you. I knew it was going to be hard work, but I didn't expect it to be as hard. And this was even before, I mean, I'm only a baby, I'm 32, right? But when I got into the industry, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it existed, but it wasn't like today where, a day in the life of this, a day in the life of that. It was very much like the old days where you was a bit blind to the whole thing. So I went in thinking this is going to be a good career. This is going to be a good career. Wearing and I got a real insight. That was where it hit me like a steam train with the hours. And they say you're going to do 4 days a week and have 3 days off, but it doesn't always work like that. Someone calls in sick, that goes to 5, that goes to 6, that goes to 7. So I think it's just an expectation. And then by the time you have your day off, all you want to do is sleep. And then it's a vicious circle and you go round and round and round. And when you're young, you think you're invincible, me included. You think you're invincible. You don't think about when I'm 30, I'm not going to be able to stand up straight. You're not going to think about the sciatic nerve going down your bum cheek into your leg, or the fact that you struggle to hold your daughter because your back seizes up. It's never ending. And I think Ramsey doesn't help. I watch the programs. I'm not going to say I don't, because for me it's entertaining, because you sit there and go, huh, it's not really like that. But if I was to make an early recommendation to people, if you want to watch a show that relates to chefing, either watch The Bear on Disney Plus. That gave me a little bit of PTSD, I'm not going to lie, because that's probably the most realistic show you'll see. Or there was a film done in 24 hours in one take by Stephen Graham called Boiling Point. That was
Yes.
that was quite realistic as well.
So is like the big goal is we put the hard graft in and then we're going to be a world class chef and then people travel the world to come and eat the food that I've prepared. Is that kind of like the sideline goal for going into the chefing? Because I mean, food when you eat, I mean, I cook my own food, but I am not a chef, and it's actually gotten to a point where I generally go out for food, and I'm like, oh God, I preferred the spag bol. I would have put in the slow cooking myself. To be fair, I'm a very simple cooking chef. To be fair, but is that kind of the dream? Is like, right, I'm going to battle it out. I'm going to go Marco Van Pier, White, whatever, Jamie Oliver. I'm going to go and live their life, and then I'll become the personality of cooking, and people are going to want to see my food. Because the one thing I remember about Gordon Ramsay, whenever you buy the cookbooks, Jamie's recipes were really simple, but they had chili and lemon in everything. I mean, it literally there wasn't a meal without a chili or a lemon in it. And then Gordon Ramsay, I bought his book, and I think his spaghetti on toast would have took me 4 hours to create it before I got the spaghetti on toast. So I kind of jacked that in by the second page of following his food. But is that the dream? Technically, is that what's the draw of right? I'm going to go and be a chef. I'm going to be a world class chef. I'm going to make the beef shin that people have never tasted before it melts in their mouth, and that's the glory. Because there's got to be some kind of glory going into to cooking and chefing, right?
Well, for sure. So I think it's just a case of deciding which kind of path you took. So when I first started in the industry, I never met a chef that didn't want their own restaurant.
Right.
That didn't want that was the goal. You asked any chef, it was, I want to be a head chef, I want to be an executive chef, I want my own place. Now there are so many options. I want to do this because I want to be an Instagram chef. I want to be a private chef. I want to open up my little food store or my food truck or something like that. So there are so many different routes that you can go down now, and I think really it is fantastic for hospitality. But it's amazing what you're saying like Jamie and Gordon, because Gordon Ramsay is a multi-millionaire 10 times over.
Yeah.
But Jamie Oliver's not short of a few quid either. Jamie Oliver found a niche, right, where he put this cookbook together, simple, tasty recipes that the home cook could replicate over and over and over again. And most of his money he made from books. So they're different caliber of chef. and it depends on, you know, what you're after. But again, you're saying he puts chili and lemon in everything,
I still
but
make his fish
it,
pie. It's the same fish pie recipe I've used for years, and it was a Jamie fish pie. In fact, my wife always says, "Oh, fancy a Jamie fish pie." I'm like, I'll make a fish pie here." It literally takes 10 minutes to muddle it up, so super quick. And I remember, and I've got a Mary Berry chocolate lemon. No, no, it was a chocolate cake that I make every birthday for somebody. They're like, "Oh, can you make that Mary Berry chocolate cake?" Yeah, I'm not a problem, because that literally was a 5 minute make as well. So when little Josh at school, leaving school. What was the premise of going into that industry for Josh? What was your goal, if you don't mind me asking? Before the
well,
reality hit, what was the
yeah,
goal
of
for
course.
Josh?
Of course. So before we move on to that, I just want to just go back to just what you just said there, and you've just proved my point, right? Jamie Oliver again. Oh, I really fancy Jamie's fish pie, but it's something you can replicate and replicate
Yeah,
over and over and over again. Whereas you just said, what was it? Spaghetti on toast take you 4 hours to make, and you've given up on it. And that's the niche. This is it, and this is where Jamie Oliver's been so successful
yeah.
because anybody and anyone can do it. So going back to the whole thing with the goals thing. So I never dreamt of being a chef. I haven't come from a background of, oh, I was in the kitchen all the time with my mum or my grandma doing this, doing that. Like my grandma was bless her heart, was a phenomenal cook. I mean, I'm Jewish, I've come from a Jewish background and, you know, to this day, I've never ever found someone that could make or cook fish balls like my grandmother. And it's nostalgia for me. Food
Mm.
for me, food for me is all about nostalgia. The cocktails you have wherever you go on holiday. It's a case of you try that and you get that flashback of. I'll give you an example. I can't smell black coffee without thinking of my grandma because I used to steal it as a 4 or 5 year old and she couldn't find me. And then all of a sudden she'd hear from upstairs because I drank half a cup of her coffee. But for me, that's a lovely experience, and that again is probably what kept me in the kitchen as long as it did. I took food tech at school. It was the only GCSE I got an A in. I did okay, right? Yeah, only one I got an A in. So I went on. I did my A levels. My AS results were rubbish. I need to be careful.
So am mine.
Something doesn't. Bad language doesn't slip out. So it's absolutely
No, it's fine.
atrocious.
You know that. You can say what you want.
Right. So I went to sign up for this pointless course at a local college, and the woman said to me, "Oh, you got an A in food tech. Have you ever considered being a chef before?" And I'd never considered it before. And then that circles back to what I was saying before of I had no idea what I was getting in for because I had no intention of becoming a chef. My cousin's a chef, he's a pastry chef, he's doing really well. I spoke to him about it, and I thought, yeah, you know what? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? Literally. And here I am sat, yeah, 15 and a half years later. Um, yeah,
So that
honestly.
and that leads in perfectly to actually I wanted to before we move into how we're gonna move because that we talk about the good times, we talk about the bad times, so that everyone can see that there's always light at the end of the tunnel and it's not always a train coming. So I want to ask you, how is your grandma's or how was your grandma's chicken soup? I've got a feeling she may have been. I don't know if I'm overgeneralizing, but my understanding of Jewish food is the chicken soup is the bomb.
It's called Jewish penicillin for a reason. So
Yes.
so whenever you're ill or you were feeling a little bit bad or no, what was the word? Yeah, when you just weren't feeling yourself. It's a bit like when you go into any household in Britain and you go, "Oh, how are you? Oh, I've had a little bit of a bad day. I'll stick the kettle on." It's very, very similar to that, and it just made there's again nostalgia. It just makes everything feel better. And another thing you need to know about the Jewish culture is everyone's mum or grandma makes the best chicken soup. Everyone.
Right.
There's no everyone. It's standard. Every household in the whole world has a staple, a dish that they've eaten their whole life, and no matter what it is, whoever makes it for them does it the best.
Yeah.
And it's just a standard thing, you know. Do I think my mum's chicken soup is the best? Yes, I do. But it's again, I'll keep using the word. It's just nostalgia for me. Yeah, it's
Perfect.
Jewish penicillin.
I love that. I love that the nostalgia of food. But that's, and I suppose that's what, when when you talk about the nostalgia of food, it conjures up the smells, it conjures up the images, it conjures up the times when we were happy, we were made to feel something.
Yeah,
Which kind of moves us down to the next way, is like, I didn't understand what it was going to be like going into the cooking industry. So we know about the good time. What did your cousin say to you, by the way, who's the pastry chef? Did he say, yeah, yeah, do it, go for it? Or was he like,
oh, I can't remember. This was years ago now. I can't remember. Go and see.
bless.
I can't remember. A long time ago. I remember having a phone call with him when I was about 6 weeks in. At Marcus Waring's, and I was in tears every day. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And he basically just said to me, look, you're not doing it properly if at this a point of your career you're not thinking about quitting. That's another thing a lot of chefs will say, is if you don't want to quit every single day when you're training because you're being pushed to your limit, you're not doing it properly. Nothing in life that's hard or easy, should I say, is really worth going after,
It's
because then
true.
everyone would do it.
It's true. And from what I remember from, again, from watching one of the chefs, it was a Gordon Ramsay documentary about how high cocaine use was within the cooking industry because of the hours, because of the pressure,
Huge,
because
huge.
it was a really high cocaine use.
Yeah, I can tell you a story about that. So, somewhere I worked in the
Well
last
done. Very
15, in
professional.
the,
Very professional, Joshua.
so,
Somewhere I worked.
yeah, somewhere I've worked in the last 15 and a half years, a colleague was removed from his position because they used to attach little bags of cocaine in the back of the staff toilet. And one day they found said person passed out on the floor with an empty bag. And I say no more. And
Yeah.
this is the sort. So that just confirms it. And again, yeah, it's absolutely rife. But then again, that's where it links to like bankers and high pressure professionals, because if you are expected to work 14, 15, 16, sometimes 17 or 18 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, you physically, it will get to a point where you need something to help you, something that will keep you awake, something that will keep you going. It does a lot of other things to you, but you need something, because you're not a robot. Some people can deal with it. That's fine, because they absolutely love the violence, the carnage, the chaos, and that's absolutely fine. But the majority of us, you needed something.
Yeah. It's an important part. It genuinely is. So we're going to talk about that. There's always a tipping point for Joshua. What was the tipping point for Joshua where you knew something had to change? Because if it's kind of the same old adage, if you don't know, you don't know, or if you do know,
Hmm.
you do know. But what was the tipping point? I'm sure there was people around you going, "Josh, you all right? What's going on? Do you want to chat?" But Josh is like, no, I know I've got to suffer. I know I've got to go through this because that this is where I want to go and things like that. But what was the tipping point for Joshua?
Well, you say that there were people around you going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" There wasn't. And there really, really wasn't. So I've got Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed in 2016, and a lot of it was related to stress and or some of the things that I used as, when I was a bit of a naughty boy, but that's a different conversation for another day. But it links pretty much to what I was saying about said colleague at said place I worked at. And when I went back into the kitchen after I'd been off, it was just expected of you just to get on with it. Or when I was in the process of being diagnosed with it, there was a time I was left on the floor in the back of a kitchen whilst everybody else just got on with it. And I'll tell you that I'll tell you this little story as well, which is linked to which is leading up to the breaking point. In a restaurant I worked in, we had a kitchen table, and the amount of stars, celebrities, or whoever else were on there, or people, or entitled people that were on there was outrageous. So in the kitchen, it was just a U shape, and then they could see right in. They were basically in the kitchen with us. I had a Crohn's flare up, which I didn't know was Crohn's at the time. This is a few years before my official diagnosis, and I was in bits. I couldn't stand up, and every chef that cooked the course had to go up and explain. My boss at the time knew I wasn't with it. Have some water, you'll be fine. Take some paracetamol, get a grip, all the usual stuff. So what they did was they left me on the floor in the back of the kitchen. When it was my time to go and present, they picked me up, they dragged me. They couldn't see it to the entrance to the kitchen. Gave me a fresh jacket, cloth, and whatnot. Got changed. I went and presented. I put my hands behind my back because my hands were shaking because I hadn't eaten. And then once I presented it, I went and sat back at the back of the kitchen. They just left me there, all service. I think I was down there for about 4 hours. Um, so that was the start, and this was very early on into my career, but that was the start of it. And then the symptoms went dormant for a while. Then they came back, funnily enough, when I was at Caravan. But again, I'm not going off on a tangent. But the tipping point for me really was to find an actual tipping point. Um, my wife noticed a pattern. Whenever I wanted to go and leave a place, I would always speak to my loved ones. They would say, "Oh, try another kitchen, try another kitchen." But she said this to me a few years ago. She said, "Josh, you're like a magpie, right? You leave a place and then you go into another one. It's all shiny, it's new. You think this is going to be different. This is going to be different." But what I didn't realize was at the time, you can't run away from yourself. And only up until 2 or 3 years ago did I say the sentence out loud, "I do not want to be a chef anymore," because I knew deep down for years I didn't want to do it. But because I didn't say it out loud, it meant it wasn't true. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening to this and all around the world have exactly the same thing. If you don't say it out loud, then it's not real. It's a bit like mental health and physical health. If you can't see it, it's not there. But it is, and you know it. You just don't want to admit it to yourself. So that was about 4 or 5 years ago when I started first having these thoughts about it. And then 2, 3 years ago, the tipping point for me was my last full-time job in the kitchen. That was not fun.
Right.
Not
And
fun.
for someone to be watching this and go, "Thanks for the story, Josh. But what was actually happening?" I always like everyone to, if they can, share the story of what's happening internally. What's the
Internally, yeah,
conversation? Yeah, what's the conversation internally that you were scared to talk about, that you were scared to put out into the world, so that somebody
yeah,
else will go, "Oh, that's me. I'm not mental. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not bipolar. Oh, it's
yeah.
just an internal conversation that I know I had as well." But what was your internal conversation like?
So that was the thing. There wasn't an internal conversation, whereas now there is constant communication within my own head. And yes, or right, I say no, I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not bipolar. I don't have split personality syndrome. There's people that have these horrible conditions, and again, my heart goes out to them, and I hope they get the treatment that they need. But for the clarity of this conversation, I don't have any of those things.
No.
And constant conversation in my own head is a way of coping. It's something that I've learned, something that I do with my therapist. I'm in supervision for my job because I need to be for the first 3 years of my career. But it's good because you look after yourself. So what was going on at the time, Cuddy, was nothing. That was the point. I was completely numb. And
Numb.
my wife knows when I say the words, "I'm completely numb," alarm bells, red flags. That's when she sits me down because I'm such a big personality. I mean, I wouldn't say boo to a goose, and I couldn't lie to my dog, for example, because what you see is what you get with me. If there's an issue, I'll tell you. I was a shell I accepted I had all these limiting beliefs of you're useless. These are from me personally. These aren't examples. This is how I was feeling.
Yeah.
You're useless. You don't deserve to be here. You're a waste of oxygen.
Yeah.
You're a burden. Nobody cares because I didn't open up. There were people in there that were helping me, but I would sit on my break sometimes having panic attacks. My breathing would get quicker because of the fear of what other people might think.
Mm.
And I wasn't junior in this place either. I was number two.
Yeah.
And a lot of external circumstances happening, a lot of anti-Semitism. I mean, I'd leave Farringdon Station every morning and see anti-Semitism on the wall.
Mm.
Seeing religious Jews on their way to Hatton Garden being spat at, having things thrown. It didn't affect me directly, but it affected me mentally because I didn't have the capacity or the processes to explain how I was feeling. I was just going and going and going and going. And the one thing I'll say to people is if you don't stop, you never truly know how you're feeling because you're focused on something. You just go and go and go and go. All right, eventually you will just collapse in a heap. But mentally, if you just keep on going and going and going and going, you don't know how you're truly feeling. You just burn out. Because when you stop and think and you're alone with your own thoughts, your brain will then go, well, I don't feel good. And it's probably due to everything that's going on. So to mastermind your answer to your very simple question, there was no conversation. To some people that's fine, but to me, who is a big personality, when I go quiet and when I go numb, alarm bells ring. When you are opposite to what you're normally like, that's when you need to think about it.
Yeah.
If you're a quiet person and you all of a sudden you get loud and a bit leery and you just try and put on a front because attack can be people might think attack is the best form of defense. But when someone's quiet, when someone's loud and brash and then they go reserved and they're quiet, that's when you need to talk to them. That is when you need to talk to them because you don't know what's going on inside. Look at Robin Williams. Happy, 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 happy. Look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So you now help out stressed out individuals. What does that look like working with Joshua Samuels?
So it depends what the person comes to me for. I
Perfect.
treat I treat the person. I don't treat the symptom because someone that comes to me with anxiety is going to be different to someone else that's come to me with anxiety. So I'll give you an example. I had someone a while ago come to me with a fear of flying. Did the treatment, blah 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 blah. Turned out it had nothing to do with a fear of flying. It had everything to do with being locked in their room when they were 8 years old and not being allowed out of their room until they'd done their homework and cleaned their room. So it had nothing to do with being scared of flying. That's surface level. I'm scared of flying. I must be scared of heights. You start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. It's all about a lack of control. They couldn't get out of the plane. So then we found out it wasn't just being stuck in a plane. It could be, if they had to be admitted to hospital or any place where they couldn't leave out of their own fruition. Yes, they could walk out of the hospital, but if you've been admitted, you're not just going to walk out. Yes, some people do, but it's a case of I'm trapped. I can't go anywhere. I can't go anywhere. So that's the classic thing. If you put 10 people in front of the Eiffel Tower, not everyone is going to envisage or understand things in the same way. They might go, that looks beautiful. Look at the architecture. Someone might go, yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day. Can't you feel the sun on your skin? Isn't it not making you feel really warm and fuzzy? And then someone else might go, couldn't we have not come in a few months' time? And there's too many people. It's really, really busy. And then someone else might look around and go, it's a big pointy metal thing. What am I looking at? I just don't get it. And that's also where I feel that teachers are struggling in classrooms.
Mm.
It's not a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of understanding. If you've got 30 kids and they're causing havoc, and you're writing something, I mean, I'm showing my age here, you're writing something on the board or whatever, um, and some people will understand it, but then you get annoyed with that one kid, and all that one kid will remember is when they get home from school, oh, that teacher shouted at me today because it made them feel bad.
Made them feel something.
Yeah, made them feel something. And shouting equals not good. You know, whether they saw the help, they don't see help. They see aggression.
Yeah.
So that is what working with me is like. I train the unconscious mind, so then the unconscious mind can train the conscious mind. Because I say to people, you don't get up in the morning and think about your steps. You don't go right, left, right. You just don't do that. Your brain is programmed to do that. You have a morning routine. You do the same thing over and over again. If you can do that with a daily routine, you can do that to break a bad habit. It's all about willing. If you're not willing to change, what I do won't work. If a client comes to me and says, "Oh, my mum thought this was a good idea," I won't straight away. I'll be like, "I can't work with you because I know there's going to be something niggling that you don't truly want to be
Yeah.
here. You have to be here off of your own fruition." That
Yeah.
is what working with me is like. It's exactly like that in real life. You know, 1 + 1 = 2, and I call a spade a spade. That's just me. I'll say it how it is. And if I don't feel like I can help that person, I just won't. I'm not wasting their time. I'm not wasting my time, and I'm not taking their money. I'm
Yeah.
just not. What is the point? I got into this line of work to help people that actually want to be helped, not self-entitled people, not rich people that think they can talk to people however they want. This for me is not a job. This is a passion, a life lesson, and my drive, my reason for getting up in the morning. And this is the job or passion I could see myself doing for years and years and years. It's longevity for me.
Yeah.
And I want to help the people in hospitality because I still love the industry. Just because I don't want to work in the kitchen anymore, it doesn't mean I want to discourage people that are finding it hard at the moment because they might walk away from a career that they love just because they don't know how to manage or process those feelings. And that's okay. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
Perfect. So I have a question for you. So anybody, let's say in the banking industry, JP Morgan, or working for Marco Van Pierre White, whatever the hell they're called. I probably said two different chefs' name there, to be fair. What's the top three things three tips right now? Look, I'm never going to work with Joshua Samuel, but I need to take something away from working with Josh Samuels. What's the three things somebody could start today to avoid burnout?
To avoid burnout, right? Okay, so firstly, if you're not aware of what a burnout loop is, then it's probably worth a Google. But it's like anything in life. If you're not aware or you don't know what something is, how can you do anything to stop it, right? So again, if you need to know what burnout is, I kind of work off of the 12 stages of burnout. I'm not going to go off and rattle all 12 because, to be honest with you, if I try and think of them all off the top of my head in order, we'll be here all day. But I'll give you an example of a few. So for me personally, when I believe I'm in a burnout loop or I'm starting, nothing else matters. I work, I work, I work, I work. I'm laser focused on just constantly work, and nothing else around me matters. Nothing. And then obviously there are no boundaries. So then when your loved ones are trying to help you or to support you, you then get more aggravated with them. You can't take criticism. You're you know, you could become abusive. Again, these are just different traits that could come. And then for example, for me, I ended up in total burnout where it was manic depression. Nothing happened, nothing bothered me anymore. I became numb. I didn't feel anything anymore. My wife was in tears in front of me, and it didn't bother me.
So that's a really powerful, actually. But for someone to really understand right now is it's that the reason we become so numb is because our body has just basically overstimulated in every way possible because we're constant.
Yeah.
So your brain, your body just shuts down. So you're running on empty, just like an AI bot, just going, there's just nothing because you're overstimulated and not had enough time to relax. So your brain just shuts down in a way of like, right, I'm not going to feel all these things. So the opposite to burnout. So like you said, that the burnout is numb, can't feel anything. And the other side is, oh no, feeling things is okay because then we can manage them. It's funny you say that because like the sometimes the aggression. Once I've heading towards like too much, I do get crabby. Even my wife is like, go and have a meditation for God's sake. You're too crabby. Go and please meditate for 20 minutes. And I'm like, is it that bad? Because we don't know sometimes. We don't, no, carry on, carry on, carry on. We'll push yourselves, we'll push yourselves. But I think that's a really powerful concept for someone to understand is other people around you will notice. And that's a sign for people to check in with. So what's the third sign of burnout?
Where's the third sign of burnout? So again, you end up going into fight or flight. You live your life in fight or flight. So I'm probably going to get absolutely butchered for saying this wrong, but I think it's your amygdala, the part of your brain
The
that is
amygdala is just at the base of the
yeah,
neck. Yeah, absolutely.
which is in charge, which is your part connected to your limbic system, and it is in charge of your emotions. So if you know you are more emotionally charged, and you end up being hijacked by your unconscious mind, and you're not yourself. For example, for me personally, I know when I'm starting to get to that point because I'd be really reserved. I'd be like, "How are you?" Then I'd be like, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, we've got 200 covers today. Yeah, that for me, that was another sign of me getting depressed and me towards the end of my burnout loop. I didn't even have enough energy to speak.
Mm.
I was just finished. When I wasn't even thinking about that, I, I just, yeah, there was no, there was no, I was very monotonous. You could probably tell right now that's just not what I'm like. And that's why it was very easy for me, or for other people to notice something was wrong. It took me a long time of noticing and realizing what my own burnout loop is.
So
So
we
for me, that was the
recognize that the
sign.
signs of burnout. What's three things somebody can do to deactivate those burnout loops? Three tips. Joshua Samuels, the stage is yours. What's three things somebody can do tomorrow to de-escalate that?
So one thing I always say to my clients is that I was taught during my training is something called three gifts. So you get to a point where you can't see or understand or what's going on. You have brain fog. You can't think clearly. It's either called three gifts. You can call it a gratitude journal, whatever you want to call it. I have a notepad by my bed, just over there, where at the end of every single day, I find three positive things that have happened. Depending on which point of your life you're at, you will write down whatever's going on. So if you're at your lowest, it could be I managed to get out of bed today and I managed to have a shower and I've managed to go for a walk. That is a win. Celebrate all of your wins, no
Yeah.
matter how big or small. It doesn't matter what you deem is small, what someone else deems is small, or someone deems as big. It's all about celebrating the little wins that you have in your life. Because if you start doing that, and this exercise is designed to train your brain to look for positives. So the more you do this, you'll find yourself out in the day somewhere, you'll be at work, and you'll go, that made me feel quite good. Something I haven't felt for a long time. So like for me, I feel like really warm in the chest if I saw like a nice dog because I love dogs. Um, there was a dog that used to come and visit me at one of my other jobs, and it was the best part of my day. His name was Archie, 11-month-old pup, and I play fetch with him on my break, and that was my favorite part of the however long I was at this place. That was a positive for me, an absolute positive for me. Secondly, again, this is not groundbreaking. We're not reinventing the wheel, but sometimes you've just got to take a step away, because taking a step away, and when I say taking a step away, that doesn't mean leaving a job, leaving permanently. These are not permanent solutions, unless you want a permanent solution like leaving your job or moving to another country, if you like. For me, it was all about taking a step away. When I left my last job, I was out of action for, I took a week. I should have taken longer, but I was too scared about not being able to pay my bills. So I totally understand that. Take
Absolutely.
a break. Yeah. Take a break, even if it's 3 or 4 days, to reset your mind. Find something that makes you happy. And if you can't think of something that makes you happy, think about what used to make you happy in the past. If you can't think of something new, think of something old. And it could be something silly. Again, for me, it all goes back to my grandma. God bless her. I miss her dearly. Um, I would walk I would walk to a park near me. I call it the duck pond. And during that week off, it was hammering it down with rain because it was in November. I'd walk to the park. It was about 2 miles, and I'd walk and I'd feed the ducks, because it's what I used to do. My grandma used to take me to the park. I used to feed the ducks. I used to feed the squirrels. I'd have my headphones in, and there were times I'd sit there and I just cried. I just cried and cried and cried and bawled my eyes out. I'm getting a little bit emotional thinking about it now. It's like, but that is what I used to do. But it made me feel so much lighter. And that could be another thing another tip, if you like. If you are able to show emotion or cry, just do it, man. You will feel so much better.
The release.
It's relief. Forget this toxic masculinity. It doesn't make you any less of a man. I want to raise my daughter for her to see that it's okay for her dad to show emotion. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be really happy. It's okay to run around and act silly. And it's okay for her to paint my face and make me sit and do tea parties and build dens when she's older. That's the sort of that's the sort of thing. That really is. So again, three gifts, or positive journal, or gratitude, whatever you want to call it. One client I've worked with used to call it their little book of miracles. Number two, find something that you enjoy doing outside of work that's not related to your job. And if you can't find something, then think about what used to make you happy. One thing, it could be anything, absolutely anything. And if you're able to cry, do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. If you're able to, honestly, if you're able to. And if you can't, then probably the best thing to probably do is to communicate with others. Find one person. One person. A problem shared really is a problem halved. They may not be able to give you an answer, but it's better than being on your own with your own thoughts,
Mhm.
because that's a scary place to be sometimes. A really scary place to be.
We do suffer a lot more up here than we do in the outside world. We do, and it's a hell of a lot. It's like a Stephen King novel sometimes up there.
Yeah, it
And
really
thank
is.
you for
It really
sharing,
is.
Josh. It is. It becomes, and because we've seen it and we've felt it up here, we think it's real, and that's how the irrational part of the mind kicks in, and it is. It's torture. I remember back in the day for me it was torture, and then we don't often realize how quick and easy it can be to make those shifts once we recognize it. It's the fact that
Yeah.
we don't recognize it, we don't speak it into the world aloud, and we don't acknowledge it. We keep pushing it away. Whenever we keep pushing it away, we're just focusing on those negatives again and again and again and again. And feelings are important, but they're not facts. And I know I've said that many a time in the podcast,
Mm.
because we don't feel like we're worthy, because we don't feel like we're good enough or feel like we should be here, doesn't mean to say that they are in any way real or correct. And I think it's a powerful message for someone to get when they watch the podcasts, whichever podcast that they're watching. Josh, it's been a pleasure and a joy having you on. Is there anything else you want to share to the world in Josh's finest moment? What wisdom do you want to impart?
Eat what you can and leave the rest. And what I mean by that is, yeah, eat what you can and leave the rest. And again, there's that one. And your plate of productivity hasn't grown from the 31st of December to the 1st of January. So I'll round up those two. Eat what you can and leave the rest. You've got a mountain of things you need to prioritize. You don't need to get everything done. You know, if you're like me at the moment where you've got a new 7-month-old, you've got this career and you're building something up, but you've also got chores to do, you've got friends to see, you've got families to see, you've got all of this to see. That's okay. Do whatever you can. Give yourself some time, whenever that is, 20 minutes, half an hour, 2, 3 hours with your loved ones. And if you live on your own, then time with yourself is important to decompress, to really appreciate what's around you. Because sometimes if you don't wake up and smell the roses, it will be too late. So
Absolutely.
eat what you can and leave the rest. And my plate of productivity. More often than not, when people pick up New Year's resolutions, they're like, I want to do this, I want to get fit, I want to do this, I want to do that. That's cool, no worries. But then after a month, it stops because these goals aren't attainable. You don't have more time. Happy New Year. The day's now 26 hours long. No, it doesn't work like that. There are still however many days in January or February or whatever. If you didn't have time to go to the gym last year, why are you going to have time this year? If you pick something up, you've got to drop something else. Because the more you pile on your plate, a bit like an all-you-can-eat buffet, you keep piling stuff on your plate, what's going to happen? Things are going to fall off the edges. But what you need to be careful of is the things that fall off of the edge of your plate may be the really important things, like your family, your loved ones, your friends, and you've left something else on there. Oh, that's fine. My family and my wife may have left me, but at least I've managed to do all my ironing and all of my chores today. Yeah, okay, that's really good. To some people, that's important. For me personally, if you want to pick something up, you have to drop something else.
That is a powerful mic drop for you. From dropping the plates and dropping something to dropping the microphone. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, Josh. It's been great having you on.
Pleasure.
And thank you very much for joining us on the Mind Management Mentors podcast. If there's ever an example of if it's in the mind, it can be managed, this is one of those stories that will hopefully share and shed some light on the stresses of life and how to overcome them, not just with hypnotherapy, but also with Joshua Samuels. Been a pleasure, my friend. As always,
Pleasure.
remember, big love from Cuddy, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast.